See, there's something within us that wants to leave a legacy. But here's the thing you need to know is if God asks you to do something, don't look at the size of the job, look at the size of your God who asked you to do it. See, he laid down his life for you, so that tells me that you are not worthless, you are worthy. And this is what he wants to rewrite into your story. That reality impacts everything.
Hey, Lakeland Small Groups, thanks for tuning in again this week. I'm pumped that you guys are together and up for this discussion together. So here's what we talked about last weekend at Lakeland. We were looking at this story from Daniel chapter 3. I hope you've had a chance to read that as a small group together. The whole story is in Daniel chapter 3, and it's about 3 guys who face huge pressure as they try to follow God and obey God and do what they think is right. And they've got these weird names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We actually find out they're Babylonian names. But here's kind of the bottom line that we get from this story. When you face the greatest pressure, you can make the greatest impact. When you face the greatest pressure in your life, when it comes down to doing right, honoring God, it actually gives you the greatest opportunity to make the most impact. This is what I want you guys to throw around. So if you've had a chance to read that chapter, I'd love for you to go around the room and ask these 2 questions. First, have you ever suffered for doing good or for doing right? Have you ever suffered for doing good or for doing right? Maybe you felt like you've missed out on some fun, or missed out on an opportunity, a promotion, missed out on a relationship, or even a chance for financial gain because you were trying to honor God. Maybe you felt like you were punished or penalized for doing the right thing. And it sometimes feels like, why is this happening? I thought I made the right call. Aren't I supposed to receive all these blessings? So answer this question. Have you ever suffered for doing good or for doing right? Here's a couple verses. In 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 14 and 17, Peter says this, "But even if you should suffer for what is right, you are blessed. Do not fear their threats. Do not be frightened." And then in verse 17, he says this, "For it is better, if it is God's will, to suffer for doing good than for doing evil." So we see this modeled by Jesus and taught by all the early apostles that Christians will suffer for doing good. And Jesus himself even said that you'll be blessed for it. And Peter reminds us that he says that. So that's the first question. Have you ever suffered for doing good? Second question I want you guys to go around the room is this. In what ways do you face or have you faced pressure in honoring God? So as you've tried to say, what do I do to honor God? How do I obey? How do I do right? What ways do you feel pressure, or in the past have you felt pressure? Here's some ideas that I thought of. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to get ahead, maybe by cheating. And if you're in school, you could get better grades. If you're in business, maybe you could make more money. And there's this opportunity, and you know you could just go ahead and take advantage of it, but you struggle with the pressure to honor God. Maybe you feel the pressure of a high position. This is something that we see from this story, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They actually have a high position, and with that position, being over other people, comes great pressure. Maybe you have that kind of influence in your job or in your family, and you feel that kind of pressure because people are watching you. And they have an opportunity to see God through you, especially in your high position. Maybe you have lots of good reasons to lie about something, and maybe people that know you wouldn't even blame you for doing it. But you know in your heart, like, this is not God honoring, and you feel that pressure. Maybe like the story, there's just a lot of people that watch you. I don't know if it's nosy neighbors or if you got a big family or if it's co-workers, but there's people that you know are aware of your story and what you're going through, and that just ups the pressure on you trying to do what's right and honor God. Here's those are some of the ways. So I'd love for you to go around and how do you feel or have you felt in the past pressure in trying to honor God as you live in your current job, family, neighborhood, all the things that you do. Here's some of the things that we talked about just as a recap. We talked about how God allows the pressure in our lives, but he allows them for his glory. So when you try to honor God, but it's difficult, you try to do the right thing to honor God, but like it's hard for you to do and you feel pressure, God allows that pressure and he promises to be with you. Just like the guys in the story. They put 3 in the fire and then they jump out of their seats and they see, I count 4 people now. Jesus was visibly with them, and he's actually with us. And so God allows this pressure in his life so that he can get more glory from your story, but he promises to be there. We also talked about bringing God's name into it. So as you live your life and you feel pressure to do right, obey God, honor God, don't just, grind your teeth and get through it. Bring up God's name. Tell people, this is why I said this. This is why I didn't say this. This is why I choose to raise my family this way, or to live my life this way, or to lead my business this way. Put God's name on the line, because God consistently shows up to defend his own great name. So as you go through situations where you feel pressure to honor God, bring God's name into it. Plus, when you do that, it's a great witness. People don't just think, oh, he's a good guy. They think, oh, he serves a God who's worth going through difficult things to do what's right. And lastly, but maybe most difficult, we talked about how Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego say this. In verse 18 of Daniel chapter 3, they said this, "But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up." Even if he does not. They said, we believe that our God can save us, but even if he does not, if he lets us go into this fire and suffer and burn and die, we still believe that we're doing the right thing and that God will be with us and God will honor us. So the last thing I want you to throw around as a group is, how can you put your trust in God's goodness and God's plan for you, even if he does not? So it's easy to think, God's going to save us in the fire. Let's just walk up to that thing and get it over with and let everybody see our God. But it's tough if you think, maybe he'll do that. He totally can do that. But even if he does not, will I follow no matter what? When the pressure's high, when honoring him is difficult, even if he does not come through the way that I hope he comes through, will I follow him no matter what? That's really hard, but that's an awesome thing that we see from these three men, that they're going to honor God when the pressure's up, because they know that the greater the pressure, the greater the impact. The bigger the pressure in your life to follow God, and when you actually do that, people will notice more because they get the pressure that you're going through, and they will see God in bigger ways. You'll have a greater impact. In the story, these three guys are actually impact the king, all of his leaders, and the entire nation, because the story wasn't over quickly, and it wasn't an easy story, but as people watched the pressure rise and the story, climax, they got to see this amazing moment where God delivers them. And the king says, now I want you to worship their God, because he is the one true God. The greater the pressure in your life to follow God, the greater the impact. I hope that spurs you on to follow when the going gets tough, to honor God when it's easier not to, when nobody else would, when people wouldn't blame you for giving in. I hope that you stick it out, because you know that God allows that for his glory, and he'll use it for you to make a great impact. I hope that you have some great discussions in your group as you talk about this. I hope that you even have some enlightening discoveries about yourself and about each other as you kind of ask these questions. And I pray that this discussion helps you live your life in a way that people see God through you, especially when the pressure goes up for you to honor God. So that's what I'm praying for you guys. I hope that this is great for you, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks a lot.